guys, I'm Mutima and welcome to the G Zone, and this is our couples chat debut. So we are heading down Peachtree Street in Metro Atlanta, or in Atlanta, and we're inviting you to come along for the ride. One of the things that we like to do in our marriage is have dialogue and conversations about everything. And today we're talking about a hot topic here in Atlanta. It's not necessarily a hot topic, but it's an important topic, and that's the Atlanta child murders. So why are we talking about that today? I had a conversation about Atlanta's old motto, which is Atlanta is a city that's too busy to hate, and I don't think that's necessarily the case, especially when it comes to the Atlanta child murders. And do you know these are still unsolved murders here in Atlanta? So we're going to talk about it. So we invite you to join us along for the ride.
And I'm G from the G Zone, and you click like, subscribe, also chime in, let us know your opinion about the child murders. Do you think Wayne did it or not? You think it was a Klan? You think it was a setup, or whatever you think? Just chime in. Feel free to comment and give your input.
Yes, so be sure to click like. Please subscribe to this channel. We're trying to grow it. G's trying to grow it. And also hit the notification bell once you subscribe, and we will update you on when we actually upload new content. So again, come along for the ride.
Come along for the ride.
Okay, so we're actually heading towards Peachtree, but right now we're in the West End community, and this actually used to be, it's a Planet Fitness we're passing by, and the area has changed so much because the Planet Fitness, it actually used to be a supermarket called A&P, and that's how I became familiar with the Atlanta child murders, because I was a child. I don't remember everything that happened during real time because I was a little girl, but this Planet Fitness was once a supermarket called A&P, and my mom, she would shop here, and one of the baggers actually would help her, and she came in one day. The story have it that she came in and asked about him, and they were like, he's not here, he's missing. And that's how I learned about the Atlanta child murders. It was going on in the it started in 1979, I believe, and some say it only happened a couple of years, but a lot of people don't know the killings continued after the person they claim was the suspect was arrested. The murders continue. So that's one of the dark moments in Atlanta history.
And it was this mall, was a West End mall here at the time?
Yes, this is the Mall West End. I have to make sure that this is not a one-way street. Okay, yes. And I used to work at that shoe store over there.
So that's a shoe store?
Yes. I worked there for many years. I was the store manager. So yes, this is the West End community, and a lot of the Atlanta child murders, it happened in areas like the West End, Southeast Atlanta, mostly all the areas were predominantly black.
So I wonder what was that mall, the West End Mall, around when the child murder was going on. That's how that's.
Yes, I believe it was. I believe the Mall West End came in 1976. I can look it up. I'm not sure, but that supermarket was there. Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so that's one of the things when people ask me, like, what do you remember from your childhood? That's probably that's probably what comes to mind. Sadly, that's like one of the things that comes to mind, because that was so, it was such a scary time.
It was a scary time, not just for people in Atlanta, it's for, black people all over the country. We got a wind of what's going on.
Yep, and speaking of all over the country, there was, because you're from Cleveland, Ohio, actually one of the families that were, one of the kids that were killed, hopefully I can talk a little bit about this without any issues, but one of the kids that were killed, he was visiting Atlanta from Cleveland, Ohio.
And that's crazy, because I remember we were here when I was living in Cleveland. We were hearing about it, and we always thought about go down to Atlanta because, they're killing children down there. And that's what we hear.
Yeah. Well, I have some facts. The Mall West End was opened in 1972, so it was well around by the time the Atlanta child murders started to happen. So, but yeah, Atlanta child murders was one of the most darkest moments in Atlanta history, and it still plagues the city because a lot of those murders, there are still, all of the murders of the children are still open. Wayne Williams, who was tried for killing these kids, he was never convicted of killing the children. He was only convicted of killing 2 of the adults. So no one has ever been convicted. These are all open murder cases, just like assume that he did it. And there have been different TV shows. HBO did a documentary. Different, people have come forth, and they believe. It's
been a movie, right?
I'm gonna talk about that movie. There has been a movie, and many people believe that Wayne Williams is innocent to this day. Now, speaking of that movie, I do remember when that movie came out, the first movie, and we just left an area that was, back in the day, it was called Mechanicsville. I don't know if this is, I guess it's still Mechanicsville, but it's right around Castleberry. But that community, there were housing projects, and that movie was filmed in that housing projects. And I remember we used to walk across the tracks because my grandmother and family lived in John Hope Homes, which was across the on the other side of the tracks, and there was this big mural for some of the children that had been missing and murdered. So looking at that in that movie was so scary to me. That was just, it was so scary. Trying to remember how to get to Peachtree. So you're gonna make if you can, make a right at this light
on Mitchell Street.
Mitchell Street. And listen, I'm probably one of the very few people that's from Atlanta that don't know how to get around Atlanta. Like, I don't know how to get around.
That's because you've been living in Duluth for the past 12 years. You forgot.
I actually left Atlanta, and I don't know if it's a one-way street. One of these streets will take us to Peachtree Street. We probably should have went down Forsyth. Yep, okay, we found it. Yep, I moved out of the city of Atlanta to go to high school, and that's when I moved to East Point.
What high school you go to?
To Tri-Cities High in East Point, Georgia. And don't ask me anything else about about high school, because that was many moons ago. But yeah, when you look at the history of Atlanta, I think one of the events in history that's always going to come up is going to be the Atlanta child murders. And I'm always going to talk about it because I want those murders solved. For those that don't know, I am a writer, and I've been writing for many years. And one of the things that I first started writing about was the Atlanta child murders. And I was a young girl going to the library trying to research that story, and it was so hard to find information back then. I remember when I was in high school, I tried to find information about Atlanta child murders, and I couldn't find anything. The librarian would look at me like I was crazy. So it's always been like a really touchy subject here.
Yeah, it's like it was a taboo subject, like, it was like hush hush.
Yeah. People didn't want to talk about it, but we have to continue to talk about it because, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation, is because the Atlanta child murders are still unsolved murders.
Yeah, unsolved. It's kind of fishy. This man is still sitting in jail, and they really don't have no proof that he did it. But it's almost like they use him for a scapegoat to, satisfy people that somebody solved the crime, when it's still a lot of suspicions going around.
Well, that's the thing. They claim they have evidence. See, this is the thing. Atlanta, one of the mottos, or the motto of Atlanta back during that Jim Crow time, or maybe right after it, there was a motto. Atlanta's motto was, Atlanta is a city that's too busy to hate. And being an African American woman from this town, I disagree with that, because there have been many times or many moments in history, even up to contemporary times, where there was some hate going on. And I knew that there was a disparity and there was unfairness of my people that look like me at an early age. And the Atlanta child murders, that is an indication of that. There was all black, black children. They were all black children, all poor children, or most of them poor children, and they were, like discarded and treated like nothing. And with all of the resources and even with technology today, why are these still unsolved murders?
Yeah.
So you can't say this is a city, and Atlanta has come a long way. It's a very progressive town. I see Atlanta as very radical. We are very open and loving to everyone, but we can't be this vibrant, place if we still have this hanging over our head. And that's who killed these kids. These children had names, they had a family, they had loved ones, and they did not deserve to be just discarded like that and treat it like, okay, we have someone who may have done it and we're gonna just walk away, case closed. No, it's not case closed. Let's reopen these cases, because there's a possibility that the man that they're claiming did this, who was never convicted, if he did not really do it, that means someone is free and someone may have gotten away with it, and we can't have that.
Yeah. And it's sad how it just seems so obvious to me. I don't know, it just seems so obvious. Me personally, I don't think he did it.
I don't know. I can't say he did it or not, because I don't know. I know there have been witnesses that have come forth that may that say that he probably did not, or there have been innuendos that the children may have been murdered by his father. There was
I never heard that before.
Yeah, I've heard that his father was a photojournalist, and there have been speculations that he may have been the killer because he was always on the scene. He had a lot of firsthand knowledge. Some of the evidence, I guess forensic evidence, that they claimed they took out of his home. So that was a
hold on, wait a minute. You saying Wayne Williams' father was always on the scene?
His father was a photojournalist. So he worked for the newspaper. You didn't know that? No,
I never heard that before. I didn't know that.
That was a theory that his father may have been responsible for these killings. And then there was another theory that seemed very logical to me, that the Klan may have had something to do with this, with the murders. With the murders.
I was gonna touch on that, and that's who I think did it, but I'm not gonna just put out there like that. But yeah, I don't.
Well, back to Wayne Williams' father. Okay, his father. So those that have knowledge of the case, and I don't want to out myself. I'm not outing myself, but my mom, one of her colleagues, when she was teaching, she knew that family. She knew that family intimately. Her son knew that family intimately. And for those that may not know, Wayne Williams, he was a gay black man. And some of the circles that he was around at the time, there may have been there was some dialogue. I don't want to say allegedly. There was some rumors. We don't like to discuss rumors, but there were some rumors that possibly that's why he was engaged in a homosexual relationship with someone, and that's why he was convicted, I believe, I heard, of the men, the two adults that were that he was convicted of. They were also gay black men.
So that could have been a personal relationship he had with those two.
Yes.
Those two men.
With those two men. Now, one of the men confessed, allegedly in prison, or someone connected to him confessed to the murder of the little boy that was from Cleveland. The young man that came from Cleveland, Ohio, he was visiting family. And that was probably one of the more heartbreaking stories, but I think that's the story, or that's the case. The young boy from Cleveland, I'll get his name. I think that's the story that probably could exonerate Wayne Williams, because there was some jailhouse talk, allegedly, that one of the men who was involved with one of the men Wayne Williams supposedly killed said that young man, that one of those men killed that boy. At a back in the day, you have like a laundromat, right? It was on Jackson Parkway somewhere, and one of the kids saw him raping the little boy from Cleveland. And all of this is, if you research, because I don't want to be too graphic, but one of his friends who was with him, he saw them. And a lot of the kids that were murdered, they were like street kids, and they were, you know, a lot of them poor, but the child from Cleveland wasn't. He was visiting, he had family here, and he was with a friend, and they were out. And the friend that was with him said he saw one of those men raping that little boy. So more than likely, they think he killed him. So Wayne Williams, that could exonerate him.
Right.
He was not convicted of killing any of those kids. These are all open murder cases.
Right. I don't think he killed any children. You know, he maybe those two, like you said, those two grown men, probably, but children, I don't think that. And is this something my spirit's telling me that he didn't do that at all? Not one of them.
I'm not
one of those children. I don't think he did any of those children.
Really? Okay, and I don't know that to be. I do think he was used as a scapegoat, and I also think that something more sinister may have happened. And I don't think it's something, I guess, it's almost like Pandoras Box. It's like Atlanta doesn't want to open that box up.
It's a huge box.
Yeah, because another theory, and something else that will have been, and this is not something I'm just pulling out of my, my mouth or pulling out of my ear to say. These are things that we talk about in this town a lot, that a lot of people don't ever want to bring to the forefront, because Atlanta is a city that is very cliquish, and is about who you know, and it's also a city of perception. Sometimes perception.
A live for the Jones type city.
Not just live for the Jones, but perception is important. It's important to me too. We always have this issue, you and I. But you have reality, and you have sometimes perception doesn't. It's different from reality, and I know a lot of times here in this town.
Well, a lot of people,
it's about perception.
A lot of people here, they paint a perfect picture, like your the title of your novel.
Yes, and you can get that on Amazon or go to mutimaonline.com. Paint a perfect picture.
Paint a perfect picture.
But yeah, so Atlanta is a town. It's about perception. We care. Look at this. Look at this. I'm sorry. Someone just.
You talking about that driver?
Did a whole, yes. And Atlanta, not only is it a town of perception, it's a town of bad drivers.
No, effed up drivers.
Oh my God, that was crazy.
These people got their driver's license out of a damn Cracker Jack box. Cracker Jack box.
Yeah, speaking of driver's license, never mind. I knew somebody that knew somebody. See how Atlanta work? Because I showed it I didn't pass the parallel parking. I didn't pass, but I'm a good driver.
Oh, you all right?
But anyway, back to, so I think people like to tread very lightly on this topic, because it's almost like Pandora's Box. If you open it, something is going to lead to something, and it's going to be a big scandal, more of a scandal than we've probably already seen.
It's called a domino effect. You be all kinds of. They may open up other situations, other crimes that may link from that.
Yeah, so there was, back to the situation with the Klan. Even with the Klan, there was a movie, the late, great Gregory Hines, you can look it up. He was starring in this movie, and I think Jim Belushi.
Yeah, Belushi. Yeah.
Yes, they did a movie years later about the Atlanta child murders and their angle, because all of the movies or the documentaries that have come out, they all take a different approach and a different angle to what happened. The initial movie in the 80s was a story, the narrative of what happened, and it highlighted the case against Wayne Williams. And then you have the movie with the late great what's his name? Gregory Hines.
Gregory Hines.
That angle was about the possible involvement of the Ku Klux Klan. That's a movie worth watching, because it highlighted the GBI, the investigation, and the connection to organized. Well, I say organized crime because I always think, the Klan, to me, that's organized crime, and it highlighted the Klan's possible involvement. So there are different there's different stories of what could have happened. There's
different scenarios.
Different
scenarios.
Right. So to have one man behind bars, to take the brunt of, to be the sole person, responsible in the eye of the public, I don't think that's right.
Right. So you said that one thing, that Pandoras Box, they got that box locked, and they got like about 10 chains wrapped around it.
Yeah, because you're looking at, we're talking about, and I've heard some crazy stories about what could have possibly happened with the children, and the Klan involvement. One time I heard that there were, we talk about it a lot now, organ harvesting. They were talking about that back in the 80s.
Wow.
That could have happened to those kids.
Yep. Yeah, that's been going on for a long time, and it's still going on.
Yeah, we're talking about it a lot now. And I always say things we talk about now that we didn't really talk about back in the day. Why do you think we're talking about it now? Because we're in the age of awakening, and a lot of things that have been hidden. And that's even in the Bible. Some things that have been hidden are being exposed. So people are talking about.
There's a lot of things that's been done in the dark that's making its way to the light.
Right.
And then, things that's being done in the dark, you can't sustain it and hold it forever. Eventually it's going to make its way to the light. And that's what anything that you put in the universe.
Yeah, and that's biblical. It's always going to be exposed.
Right. So this is the age. This is exposure season. We're in a new age.
Yeah.
So things are going to get exposed. But as far as to answer your question, yeah, that's another reason why it's talked about now. Because like you said, this is the age of exposure, but it's also due to technology too.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the age of information.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go back in the day you had to go to the library to get information that you needed or wanted. And even then, you had to know what you were looking up or what you were trying to find.
Mm-hmm.
And now everything's at a click of a mouse, click of a hand. You can find out information. I'm not saying everything is 100% correct on the internet, but everything is not false either.
That's right. So if you are tuning in, we definitely appreciate it, and we hope that you can help us to grow this channel. And for those that are married, our couples chat is so important to the well-being of your marriage. Sometimes you want to get away, go in the car, and have dialogue. We like to talk about different topics, and it really does add some value to your relationship. But back to the topic for today, Atlanta child murders. And just, if you are interested, head over to Google or wherever and research for yourself. And if you feel this case should be reopened, let us know how you feel about it. What are your thoughts? What have you heard? What have you heard about it? I always ask people, because Atlanta is a melting pot of people. So many people have migrated here from all over the country, all over the world. And I ask people, like, where are you from? Where were you during that time, if you're of a particular age, and how did you hear about it, and what did you think about it?
So when it first, you said it first started happening in what, 1977?
79.
79. Okay, so
Yeah.
So 79. You were So you were just.
I was young.
So you were just 2 years old.
I was young. You have to tell my. Wait a minute. We don't tell our ages. I was young.
Okay, you're young. You're very young. So you the question I was going to ask, what were you doing? Was your mom keeping you safe during those times, or?
Yeah. So I was young, and at the time, my mother, being a new parent, had a toddler. My mom worked at the time for the City of Atlanta in Parks and Recreations. She was a community center director. So as a community center director, that's basically how it helped her career, because the city started allocating money towards keeping kids safe. So that's how she got the job in Parks and Rec as a community center director, because the goal was to keep these kids safe, and they started allocating funding to the community centers so the kids could go have a place to go. They could play basketball, they could have camp, they could have things, recreational things to do to keep them off of the street.
Okay, so you were too young to remember your mom's reaction while these murders are going on.
Yeah, well, I do remember having conversation with her, obviously, because that was her job working for the city. She was involved with a lot of the planning, and she was just saying it was very a scary time. She would say a lot of people, they didn't want their children outside. If they played outside,
I don't blame them.
They wanted them in the porch, and that's it. If they couldn't see you, if they had to see you, and if not, they didn't want. She was like, we didn't want you to go outside. Now I do have I had an older cousin. His name is Jerome. He's passed away. My mom said he would always like to, play with me, pick me up, and want me to go with him. But she said no. It was, you don't take my child anywhere. You don't go anywhere. And there's another thing. A lot of people think that only black boys were targeted. There was a black girl that was killed also.
Oh, wow.
She was found hung in a tree. I think her name was Latasha.
So it was just one black girl?
Yep, it was one black girl. The murders happened between 1979 and 1981. And, there was one girl.
And see, when you got something that's real catastrophic like that going on, 2 years, it seems like an eternity. I mean, even just a week long or something like that, it seems like forever.
Yeah.
So imagine 2 years.
Yep. And another thing, and I'm sorry, her name was actually LaTanya Williams. Her name was not Latasha, it was LaTanya Williams. And if you look at the case, some of the victims, the cause of death is listed. And you can kind of put, you can kind of connect the dots that some of them passed from the exact same thing. Some of them was undetermined. Some may have been strangled. So if Wayne Williams is a soul killer, now I'm not a murderer, so I wouldn't know how to, I wouldn't know what to do, but I'm saying if he was the soul killer, don't you think he would kill them in a similar way?
Right.
All the time? I mean, I can see if they were all being strangled, then that's like, okay, we got a serial killer. Listen, they're all that's how they connect the dots. I mean, I watched The Wire. I mean, I watched some of these shows, and when they talk about serial killer, that's how they normally get them, because they're all committed. They have a pattern. The pattern, right? So, was there even a pattern with these killings?
No, not really.
Because
it's all individual.
Right. Some had suffocation, some blunt force trauma, some were undetermined, some were, strangled. So is that a pattern?
I mean, unless he decides just kill any kind of way he can at that particular time. I don't know, but I mean, like you said, but most of your killers do have a pattern.
And he was from my understanding, he was a short, stocky person. Not like you're a big guy, like muscular guy. He was short and maybe like a little chubby. So did he even have the weight class or the physically, is that something that he could have done, even with the men? I always wondered that.
Yeah, because there's one story that was saying that, what bridge was that? They say he threw somebody off the bridge.
Chattahoochee's over there in Jackson.
Okay, the Chattahoochee bridge. Somebody was saying they was driving up the bridge and they saw his car parked and they heard a splash off the bridge. And then somebody who was there interviewing was saying that, like you said, somebody his stature could possibly pick that grown man's body up like that, just throw him over that, over that bridge like that.
But see, this is a thing in criminal justice or law enforcement or in a court of law, and I'm not an attorney, even though I probably should have been. There's a thing called reasonable doubt. There's some doubt. If there's any doubt, how could he have been convicted? There's doubt there.
Right. There's a whole lot of doubt. There's too much doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime you had a public that have a lot of doubt about it, and something don't sound right, then it's detectives that know the truth. But my question is, are they allowed to? They do know the truth, they're just not allowed to say anything.
Exactly. So some of the detectives, they've been very transparent. Some of them, and for those that believe, and like I'm only going by information that I have found that have been public information. I am not a detective. I don't know the ins and outs of this case. So some of the detectives, I don't want to take away from their I don't want to take away from what the work that they've done, because some of them, they know way more than I do. So, and if there's a detective that feels very confident that this happened, maybe he has more information than me. So what I'm saying is that I'm not saying Wayne Williams did or didn't. I'm saying there is reasonable doubt in the case, and there is information that's out there that may substantiate that may say he didn't do this. There's not enough evidence that he should have been convicted. Well, he wasn't convicted of any kids. So my thing is, let's see who killed those kids. I want to know.
That's something we probably never know. It's just something they're trying to avoid opening. They won't open, like you said.
So why?
That Pandora's box.
Right. And I think that it goes back to,
because if they opened up, it'd be some high profile people that would have to. Some of those high profile people probably already dead, but they probably still don't want that out there. Period.
Well, someone said someone that may have been involved, he got a airport, his name on the airport, but I'm gonna leave that alone. But what I'm gonna say is, I think for Atlanta to really live in its thrive, I love Atlanta. I'm from Atlanta. I am Atlanta. No, I'm not Atlanta, but I love this city, and I think Atlanta has grown and is thriving. But for it to really have that razzle dazzle, we need to get to the bottom of who killed those kids. It's really not a laughing matter. It's really serious, because imagine if it was one of your loved ones that had this unsolved murder.
Right. And until the end, this city just has that stain from that era. It's still over the city.
Yes, so I just want, and to the families, to the survivors, because some of the parents are still living, some of the classmates are still living, and they remember that time. Because again, if you were 10 years old in 79, you were born in 69, they're still living. Some of their classmates, they still remember them. They probably still remember their faces. And I think that, to them, I think we owe it to solve, well, not we, but the city, to solve those murders. But, like you said, it will probably be a little bit too hard to process, to digest, if the whole truth comes out, whatever that may be.
It's just an era, a time that, I don't know. I mean, I didn't have any family. Well, I had distant cousins, but I didn't really have any family that live here for me to visit. So I hadn't really had no reason to come down here.
But there's a Cleveland, Georgia connection, and I learned that being married to you, because your great grandmother. Well, we know a lot of the people in the South, like southern states, Alabama, Georgia, they ended up either in Ohio or Michigan, right? So there's a connection. And a lot of like your great grandmother, she was born at Grady. There was probably not a lot of places where they could be born. That's why, like Washington High School in Atlanta, Booker T. Washington High School, most blacks during the 60s and 70s or before, they went to that school because that was the only school for blacks. So there's a connection between Georgia and Cleveland. And again, that's how the young man that was killed, I'm gonna find his name, because I think about all of those children sometimes, not just I think about the case, the situation, but especially his story, because there have been so much written about him. The guy from Cleveland, his family, because a friend or something was with him and they saw something that I always thought could probably, his name was not Yusuf Bell, I can't remember his name, but
no, Yusuf Bell is here from
no,
here.
he was from here. I think his name not Pat, was it Patrick Rogers? Hold on, I think it was Patrick Rogers. It was two Patricks, but maybe it was Earl Terrell.
Earl Terrell?
I believe so. Let me see which one that was from Cleveland. And yeah.
But I just to be a child during that time.
Clifford Jones, I'm sorry.
Oh, Clifford
His name
Jones.
was Clifford Jones. So Clifford Jones, he was 13 years old at the time, and he was a Cleveland native. He was visiting Atlanta family, and I think it was during the summer, and he never made it back to Cleveland.
Yeah, because a lot of blacks that lived up north at the time, a lot of times they would come visit family in the South.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like tradition.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't come down a lot, but I know I had cousins that would come down to, visit Birmingham back in them days.
Yeah.
But like I was saying before, just imagine being, one of those children, and you scared to walk to the store, you scared to go to school, you scared to go out your house, period, because you don't know if something gonna happen or if you're gonna come back home.
Yeah. That's
It's
so sad.
It's sad. I can only imagine that. I mean, just when I would hear about it when I lived in Cleveland,
Mm-hmm.
when I was little, and I heard just hearing about it, it was scary. So I just imagine actually being in the city.
Yeah, I'm sure you heard about it, because again, I'm sure it got attention there because he was from Cleveland. It says he was visiting Lockout Avenue. That's actually in Northwest Atlanta. So his home in Cleveland, he lived at 916 East 123rd Street. I don't know if that's still around. I mean, I know the street is around.
He's on the 23rd. Yeah. So I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, so that's what they were originally from Tennessee or Chattanooga area, and he lived in Cleveland. So probably his parents migrated up to Cleveland from Tennessee.
Right.
And like my father's family migrated to Michigan, and it came to visit family that was living in Atlanta in this time when Atlanta was thriving. It was becoming this great place for blacks. I'm sorry, I'm not saying a great place. It was becoming a place that had a lot of opportunity for blacks. And they started trying to migrate back, so in the late 70s. So the fact that he came to visit and he didn't make it back, it's just so sad. And again, his story, not resonates, but his story is so important if you go and do your own research, because it shows that there's a possibility that Wayne Williams didn't kill him or didn't, unalive him.
Right. And see, this whole story is not just the Atlanta child murders, but anything, in all aspects in life, you have to do your own research. Mm-hmm. Just not just rely on what you were told. You got to do your own investigation. That's the reason why they have the detectives in the first place, because they investigate. Can you imagine if they just told them what the people on the street told the detectives, and they went along with it?
And I think the detectives, I really think they did. I think they put the city was slammed. Like, it was slammed because this was something. Again, Atlanta had a black mayor. It was Atlanta was growing and trying to thrive, and they wanted to get these murders, they wanted to get them solved. And they didn't have necessarily a lot of resources, but when it became known that, hey, we need resources, celebrities started. I think Sammy Davis Jr. came here. Muhammad Ali, I believe, came here.
Yeah.
So it was like, I'm
not surprised. This was a touchy subject.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was something they want to know what's going on with them children, with their people.
And although I was very young, I don't remember in real time, but I remember when that movie came out, because I was young. I watched the movie with my cousins, and it was probably the scariest thing, because the movie came out not that long after Wayne Williams was convicted. So I'm still a young girl, and we all watched this movie together. I think that movie traumatized me more than The Exorcist, because it was showing that people, on one scene of the movie, someone climbed up in their window and kidnapped a
Oh yeah,
child.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
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 And we was traumatized. I watched with my cousin Tammy and Spunky, with Lucius, rest in peace. We were scared to go to sleep. We were scared to go to sleep because it was so scary. And again, we watched this movie around the corner to where it happened.
Right.
Where someone went in their window and kidnapped a child.
Right.
So that movie was very traumatizing. It was very scary. And I think about,
the whole situation was traumatizing, scary.
Yep.
It's just man, it's just the things that black people had to go through in this country just to exist here. It's just mind blowing.
Yep. And I just want.
It's attacking our children.
Yeah.
It's just crazy, and it just getting swept under the rug like this. Like oh well, we found out who did it. Just leave it alone now. It just pisses me off.
And I think we have to, continue to, and like G said, the truth may not ever come out. It may not ever be revealed, or it may not be revealed soon. But I think they should reopen.
I think it's gonna get revealed eventually. I mean, it may not be in our lifetime, but I think it's gonna some way the truth is gonna poke its head out that drain.
Yeah.
That drain is real heavy, so it can't. It's trying to lift it up right now. But eventually, it's gonna lift that drain up. It's gonna gather up enough strength and pop it open.
I agree. I absolutely agree, and you're right, because again, it's biblical. Nothing hidden cannot be hidden for long. It's always going to be uncovered. So I want to thank you all for listening to us. If you know anything about the Atlanta child murders, comment below. What are your thoughts? Comment below. And again, be sure to subscribe, click like, and we will notify you on the next video. Thank you so much for supporting the channel.
Yeah, and just give your opinion. You think he did, you think he didn't, you think there's some sinister behind all this, the whole situation. Give us your opinion. What do you think about it? All right, until then, until the next video.
Peace.
Peace.